for SB 450 FN. And we'll hear from our prime sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Senator David Waters to introduce Senate Bill 450 relative to State Parks Pass Pilot Program for community mental health centers. And this content of this part of the previous bill will be familiar to some members of the committee. What this will do is to recognize the great benefit for mental health of having some recreation and time out of doors. You have a very nice letter from the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources about its willingness to participate in outlining some of the substantial research about the benefits of outdoor recreation to improve mental health and overall well-being. So what this bill will do is to authorize that the 10 community mental health centers that serve regions across the state, providing a variety of services, that each one of them would get a park pass that they could allow their clients to have for a day and go out and visit a park. And so it's a minimal cost, about, I double checked, but I think it's about $100 a pass. We already provide these to libraries and to other organizations who participate in the state park pass program. So there it is. It is a pilot program. I will note that there is a drafting error that on line 11, the prospective repeal should read 2029. It's a 3-year program. We'll get some research about participation rates and, what kind of impacts it does seem to have on people who are served by these centers. And that'll give 3 years to take a look at that with anonymized information. And so then also on line 14, the repeal date of the pilot program needs to there as well be 2029. I just want to mention, we were very favorable of this bill the last time, but it also the last time included recovery organizations, and that's what stalled it in the House. That there was anxiety about letting people in recovery go to the state parks. And so that's why it died in the House a couple of years ago, and I thought that this is something that, at least for the mental health, there was willingness to participate on the House side, and I thought I'd bring it back because I do think it's going to be a benefit to the folks who are using the community mental health center. So that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any questions from the committee members? Senator McConkey.
Thank you, Senator, for this. Is this pass that they would have would get them only into state parks, state-owned properties? Thank you.
That's it?
That's it.
I'm sorry, Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What about the parks where you have to pay to park? Would this cover the parking? Is that what the entrance fee is?
I don't believe so. I think that's a separate matter, and because of the revenue source of the parking, like at Hampton Beach or something, I wouldn't want to get into that area. This is
Okay.
just the
It's
just the admission to the
entrance
park,
the
yeah.
park.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what the pass does.
Any further questions? Seeing none? Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Well, we have a long list of one who want to testify on this. So Holly, would you? We're going to give you more than 3 minutes. How's that? That's good, because then we could probably exec it right away.
Chairman Avard and members of the committee, my name is Holly Stevens. I'm the Director of Public Policy at NAMI, New Hampshire, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. We are a grassroots organization whose mission is to improve the lives of all people impacted by mental illness and suicide through support, education, and advocacy. We are here today in support of this bill. In New Hampshire, as you'll see in the handout that I provided attached to your testimony, that 1 in 5 adults in New Hampshire experience a mental illness, and 1 in 6 youth aged 12 to 17 experience a major depressive episode each year. This equates to 259,000 adults in the Granite State who are directly impacted by a mental health condition, with 66,000 of our individuals living with a serious mental illness. We know that 71,000 adults in New Hampshire did not receive any care for did not receive any care for their mental illness in 2021. And we do know that the research overwhelmingly shows that outdoor nature-based activities improve mental health outcomes across all populations, including older adults with long-term conditions, people with common mental health problems, serious mental illness, as well as people that are healthy. Studies have found that nature-based interventions, including forest therapies with an emphasis on immersion in nature, had a significant effect on the reduction of symptoms for depression and anxiety. And additionally, according to the US CDC, there's a connection between the engagement with community, including parks and recreation, and positive mental health benefits. These benefits include improving people's ability to manage stress, anxiety, and depression, and this connection and engagement with community also reduce the risk of serious illness, including anxiety and depression. As you've heard, there are 10 community mental health centers in New Hampshire. In 2024, they served almost 54,000 unique individuals in our state. They serve as the primary safety net in their communities for children and adults being treated for mental illness or emotional disorders. In fiscal year 2024, 74% of the CMHC's revenues were for Medicaid recipients who have severe and persistent mental illness. Most of these people are on Social Security disability or supplemental security insurance for their only source of income. And so they don't have a lot of extra money for recreation and community engagement. So this would really allow them to be able to check out a park pass and be able to experience what our communities have to offer. So that's why we support this bill.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, and I have nobody else to speak on this, I'm going to close the hearing. Is there a motion to move into exec? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, is there a motion on this bill?
Move on to pass.
Second.
Seconded by Senator Pearl.
And I move a committee amendment to change those two dates to 2029.
Joshua, all set with that? Okay. Any discussion? All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none. Is there a motion to move ought to pass as amended?
Second. I'll move.
Okay. Senator Pearl moved, Senator Waters seconded in reverse. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, is there a motion for consent?
Consent.
Senator Pearl and Senator Waters. All right, all in favor of consent?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, who wants to take it out? Senator Waters?
Thank you, Clarence. Thank you.
Motion to come out of exec?
Seconded by Senator
Me.
Waters. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none. Senator Pearl, you are recognized for your bill. Look at that. In 2 minutes, so take your time getting there.
Slowly, he slowly approaches. the
Slowly
table.
turn, step by step. Niagara Falls.
Who remembers that anymore? you
I
know?
do. That definitely ages us, for sure.
Oh, dear. Who's on first?
Mhm. Is it 10 past? All right, we're going to open up the hearing for SB 445 from the town sponsor.
Good afternoon, members of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee. For the record, my name is Senator Howard Pearl, representing District 17, and I reside in the beautiful town of Loudon. I'm here today to introduce Senate Bill 445. This bill brings appeals of license actions and fine actions by New Hampshire DES in line with the appeals process for permit decisions. Provides better due process for those who want to challenge a licensing action or fine. Currently, DES has to create internal firewalls between and amongst staff and leadership. This creates inefficiencies internally, and it also creates the perception that the aggrieved person or entity does not get a fair hearing because the same agency that made the decision is also deciding the appeal. This bill routes those appeals to the separate independent environmental councils. Council members represent a broad spectrum of stakeholders, industry, municipalities, recreation, conservation, and public health, and are appointed by the governor with executive council approval. This diversity ensures decisions are informed, balanced, and transparent. It also allows the Department of Justice to hire someone with a Juris Doctorate for the role of hearing officer to hear appeals before the environmental councils. This is necessary because the requirement for the applicant to be an attorney has created difficulties in hiring for the position, and the duties assigned can be accomplished by non-attorneys. Fortunately, since this legislation was drafted, the Department of Justice was able to hire a qualified attorney and is working through pending cases before the environmental councils. However, it took significant time and effort to get to this point. For context, in 2025, New Hampshire DES had 6 administrative fine actions and 3 license actions. Therefore, we do not believe this will create that much more work for the councils, who are now staffed appropriately. Lastly, it is some cleanup language to get rid of outdated references, streamline internal operations, and clarifies the dates on wastewater operator certificates. And with that, I'll take any questions, but I hope the department's here that can answer the complicated ones.
Any questions from the committee? Senator Waters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Senator, would it be fair to say that basically this is a two-step in this bill for many different agencies? It has the commissioner or whatever has the authority to make certain judgments without a hearing, and then if they're appealed, there's the hearing process. Because I see.
I think so, but I'd like to have you ask that to the
Yeah,
to the
all right, very good.
DES again.
Any follow-ups? That it?
You want more?
No. Never mind. Thank you.
All right.
Granville.
Good afternoon, members of the committee, the Rex Bob Scott, Department of Environmental Services, along with the Commissioner and Grateful. Thanks for the opportunity. Senator Pearl, I think did a good job of outlining the issues, so I can give you some of my perspective. So currently, the agency has 4. Was I? Oh, there. Look at that. Okay.
Oh, now we can hear him.
Yeah.
All right, good. Excellent.
It's counterintuitive to me that red would be you're speaking, but that's
Red means hot.
yeah.
Hot mic.
There you go. So currently, the agency has 4 environmental councils, and one of their functions is to hear appeals. We've made changes in the past to the law to have that staffed through the Attorney General's office, and one of my concerns at the time was that, it was alluded to by Senator Pearl, there are decisions made by my department, either under my signature or my letterhead, certainly, and then prior to this latest changes, they would then come back to us for an appeal, and the optics are not great, right? In the context of the fixes in type of thing, right? So we moved that administrative support to the Attorney General's office, so we weren't kind of providing the support for the same thing. So now that's the past. Currently, again, for licensing actions, which is people's livelihood, so we take this very seriously, and fines, The appeal process currently goes through my staff, as authorized, will issue a fine or, gee, we're revoking your license. That is appealed internally, and then what that causes is, again, so we have the same optics, right? So the agency said this, and now you're coming back to the agency, where we have the 4 councils that are set up for that. It doesn't currently necessarily go to them. Where it happens right now is, so 2 things come of that. By that process, it means my staff who worked on that decision are now firewalled from me because it's been appealed, so I can't talk to them, which I find not appropriate. I think you all would expect that as commissioner, if I have issues, if I want to understand what staff's doing, or maybe even correct that, the last thing I would expect you to hear from me is I can't talk to my own staff about it. So that was really what started this, in my mind, if any of that makes sense. So what we're trying to do is basically reassign that function directly to the appeals councils, which are the 4 environmental councils. We're not trying to eliminate due process. In fact, we're trying to make sure that from the optics of the person who's aggrieved, they have, okay, DES said this, now I'm appealing to a impartial different party is what we're really trying to do, if any of that makes sense. The law changes that you see, because this existing law is so intertwined in our statute, the changes, and Adam can talk to it, it looks like a lot, but that's all we're trying to accomplish. We do have some changes that we would like to request. For instance, as written, if you're, say, a licensing action, we've moved to take your license away. Right now, that would be in effect until if you appeal it, until the appeal is complete. Due process wise, I want it the other way, right? If we give you 30 days, we're taking your license, you appeal it, it's not, your license doesn't go away until that appeal is resolved. So we would,
Process is over.
right. So so that was an error in the drafting that we'd like to correct also, assuming you want
Is
to
there a
proceed.
particular line that you want to change that on?
Yes, it's in section 46, and we brought an amendment with us that we can share with the committee. I don't know if I can pass it out. Yeah,
Let's do that.
yeah. We have a few amendments that understand this is a very long bill, and a lot of our statutes are intertwined with RSA 541A, and so you see 19 pages in front of you. The intent of it is to really streamline the appeals process. The problem is it's intertwined in the dozens of statutes that we have, and so during the drafting process, there were a couple that we missed, and there were a couple that we included in error. So we wanted to correct those with some amendments. So we do have those with us, but as the commissioner mentioned, the intent of this is to streamline the appeals process. Currently, it's you get a hearing before a fine or a license action is taken. Then it's appealed. Then if it's appealed, it goes to the commissioner, which creates those internal firewalls. So, here I can't talk to staff that were involved in it, and we don't feel like that's appropriate. And then if the person wants to appeal again, it goes to the council, and then it can go to the Supreme Court. And so there's several different steps currently. What we're proposing is go directly to the council because legal fees are expensive. We don't feel like the hearing internally provides additional value, and frankly, it confuses people because it's the same agency that made the decision is hearing the appeal, and so that's what we're trying to accomplish.
Are other departments wrestling with this as well?
So a lot of other agencies don't have independent counsel that they can appeal to. We do. We're somewhat unique in that respect. I can't speak for other state agencies. I know this is something that they do in my prior role in state government. I know this is something because I interface with a lot of different state agencies. I do know that this is something that they grapple with, but and certainly something that we can grapple with too. But we feel like this is a cleaner way of doing it. We did have some contentious hearings this year that brought this issue to light, and this is something that we wanted to create a streamlined process for.
Senator Pearl?
I'll just give a little context because my other hat is chair of EDNA. And so one of the things we've done with many of the other agencies and boards is through OPLC with licensure, especially they, OPLC is now doing the investigations and then it's going to the boards to sort of adjudicate. You're kind of following a similar process.
That's correct.
And that's why I think this is a good change to make.
Senator Waters?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really think this is such a good move, not only in terms of fairness, but also the potential to save some money and some time in this process as well. So my question was that because, for example, on lines 4 and lines 19, the first, and throughout.
Can we have the amendments while you're?
Yes, I can pass those around. There's 4 different ones, so bear with me, please. But
Probably want to have it in here.
So you ready?
yes, yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I see here is that what you're saying, for example, on lines 18 and 19, the Commissioner of the Department of Environmental Services serve as a strike after notice and hearing pursuant to may impose an administrative fine. So what this says is that the Commissioner is authorized to make a determination and impose the fine without a hearing. And then it goes to appeal.
Correct. If the person wants to appeal, they can appeal it. There was a drafting error, which you'll see in the amendment, which currently as it's written, the fine or license action would go in effect right away. And we felt that wasn't necessarily the fairest way to handle it. So one of the amendments you'll see is we give people 30 days to appeal. And so it won't go into effect until 30 days. And then they can appeal it, and it will be stayed if they do appeal it
That was
until.
going to be my next question.
final
So I
action.
think that's a very good way to go. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Senator Rosenwald, and then Senator McConkey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The hearings that are referred to in line 4 and throughout, when were they enacted? How long have they been in statute?
That's a really good question. We can get you an answer to that, but my guess, and it's really a guess, is from when 541A was established. And that, I don't know if we have an attorney here that may be able to answer that question, but if not, we can get you an
So
answer.
been like a long time.
A long time, yes.
Okay.
I don't have a year, but yes.
Not like 5 years, but
No, decades.
30 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Senator McConkey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, wonderful to see you. I just want a bit of a clarification here. The word you're using is license, Department of Environmental Services, license holders. This does not in any way include permits issued that do not have the word license.
So currently permits go through the same process. We issue a permit internally at the department, and then it can be appealed to one of the 4 environmental councils directly. We don't have, for very few permits do we have an internal appeals process.
Let me reframe it, and maybe you're not understanding, or I'm totally misunderstanding what you're telling me. Department of Environmental Services issues permits for water operators, for septic designers, septic installers, and I'm sure there's many others. Are they included in this conversation when you say license, when they indeed don't have a license?
Yes, we consider those certificates. Yeah, where we act as the licensing board. A lot of we don't have a board, but we act as the licensing entity, right? OPLC has a licensing board for most of their licenses. What we're talking about here are the ones that where we give authority to do some sort of work as part of their profession. So septic designers, septic installers, wastewater operators, drinking water operators, those folks that are subject to those requirements are included in the bill.
Even though the word license is not included in their certificate.
Correct. Yeah, it's licenses and certifications.
Thank you. Senator Waters.
Yeah, this is, thank you. It's kind of related to the question from Senator McConkey that I'm looking at your amendment to section 46.
Yes.
And this is what you referenced in your explanation, that unless based on a risk to an immediate risk to human health or environment, the agency decision of this paragraph should not become effective for 30 days, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that section 46 is referencing licensing. So then just to go back to the first page of the bill, let's say, you know, again, that's section 2. These are permits, right? And it has the permit and then for violation and then the list of fines.
Yep. And
that the commissioner may immediately impose that fine, then it can be appealed. So my question is whether, since there's not been a hearing at this stage, there would be a similar, some kind of provision like this for permits, that there might be delayed, that the fine, I mean, you're imposing a fine of several $1,000s, somebody appeals it, and the appeal process goes on and so on and so forth. And the appeals process finds that the fine was not justified, but they've already paid it.
Correct.
So, I mean, they get the money back, but you will know best about what the technicality should be, but you see why I would ask that question. The consequence of a decision is implemented.
Agreed. The intent of that language is to apply to the fine actions as well. We want it to apply to both fine actions and to licensing and to licensing certification actions.
Yeah, so I don't think this does it. Okay?
So is,
We can check
Yeah,
into
so
that,
just
but
take a look.
yeah, we
I
can-
just, looking at it, it seems to me it's just for licenses, not for permits.
okay, we can,
So just,
yeah,
see
we
what
can
you
look
think.
into that.
Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Looking at your proposal for section 46, how does your department determine immediate risk to human health? And the reason I'm asking this goes back to the proposal to locate an asphalt plant in Nashua. And there was discussion at a public presentation from DES about human health risks. But when there seemed to be no interplay between DES and HHS on what those human health risks from breathing in particulate matter, let's say, in that case, would be. So I guess my question is, why you on human health risk?
If I could.
Yeah.
So I'll try to answer some of the tendrils. So we do actually we have an environmental environmental health section within our agency. It just so happens it's kind of cross. There's a lot of cross back and forth. Staff tend to go back and forth between public health and us on that end. So by that nature, we have really good
Like on
coordination.
lead?
So for instance, maybe more than you asked for, but like our drinking water standards, we work that section, which has toxicologists and epidemiologists sometimes, works very closely with the HHS Public Health on the health impacts, and based on that, we promulgate standards for, in this case, drinking water standards, for instance, or to your case, particulate matter limits for which end up in permits. So when we talk about public health, it's really generally speaking, unless it's a public health emergency, which we'd work with HHS, which I've not thankfully seen one related to our involvement, that we'd be using that section to promulgate rules that of course go through JLCAR, et cetera. So we would effectively codify what that means depending on the application, if that makes sense. So that's been how we've implemented that.
So do you work with an MOU between the two departments?
We've Not currently. I don't believe we have one in that respect. There's a little bit of overlap in our authorities, so it's within both our missions sometimes in that end. So we basically work together, but there's really generally there's not a flow of, gee, you've answered our question for 2 hours, so charge us for that amount of money. That type of thing is not happening. If that's what you're asking, I don't know.
No.
Yeah. So put it another way, I would argue that we don't need an MOU because that crossover, it's in both our missions. We're both tasked with that part of it. So it's part of their job to help on those things, if that makes sense. But bottom line is we have our own staff in our own section to be able to help us set standards, and they utilize support from HHS.
Thank you.
And you may have mentioned this, it helps that we're in the same building, right? So public health is right next door. We work with them very collaboratively. I think back to several cases of Legionella and Legionnaire's disease, where we've worked with them extensively to investigate those cases. And so there are many cases where we work with them extensively.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Uh,
Appreciate the bulletproof glass. This is
Well,
great.
It gets pretty rowdy in here sometimes.
You notice we
We're,
didn't.
we're seeing an AI generated commissioner on that screen.
Yeah. Well, you are our first and final speaker on this, unless somebody else wants to weigh in on this. Oh, we have a hand. Come on up. Introduce yourself. Good afternoon. And just hit your red button so that you're got a hot mic, please. There you go.
My name is Robert Duval. I've been chair of the Air Resources Council for about 20 years. I work closely with Commissioner Scott and his Air Division. And the Air Council, which would be the venue that these appeals would go to in the case of air issues, has authorized me to speak on behalf of the council, and we are in support of this bill for the reasons that Commissioner Scott outlined.
Have you seen the amendments as well?
Yes, including the amendments. Yes, we are already hearing appeals of certain matters. This would bring those other appeals in, which I agree completely are better served. The public is better served, the department is better served by having those in our board rather than within the department.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there questions from the committee? Seeing none, well done.
Thank you.
Short and pithy, like it. Anybody else? Seeing none, going once, going twice, and close. Thank you very much. Yeah, we'll hold this one. Yeah. Very much. And we'll hear from the prime sponsor for SB 589 FN and hear from the prime sponsor, Senator Waters. You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a moment to arrange all my papers here for you. I'm Senator David Waters, District 4, to introduce 589, which is relative to establishing a multi-agency report on transmission corridors, interstate trucking, charging terminals, port electrification, authorizing a pilot program for microgrid development and requiring guidelines for cybersecurity of distributed energy resources and cybersecurity for water treatment facilities as well. I know there are a lot of moving parts to this bill, and I will go through them, but I would like to note that they all essentially derive from what has emerged from the microgrid study that was authorized by legislation, a couple pieces of legislation actually, and then was completed and released just a week or so ago. And I've asked that this be sent to you all because it has it's an extraordinary report, great work from Tom Barrasso and everybody else who participated in it. And it sets out some of the things that we need to do about microgrids, about transmission and related cybersecurity. So much of this bill because I thought the report was going to be out earlier, and so some of the parts of the bill were trying to anticipate it. And I had some conversation with Chris Elms and with Josh Elliott about their interest and desire in taking a couple of parts of this and actually working with me about what was going to work best for the department in a couple of these areas. So I would like to note here that in this report, it notes that HB 558 authorized the microgrid study, and the microgrid is a local electrical power system at distribution levels. The voltage levels can be connected to a larger network, but is also capable of operating independently, consists of interconnected loads, distributed energy resources perhaps, and it's designed to meet the unique needs of the load it will serve. Now in this study, it looked at a lot of different models from other states and the ways in which these are created. And it identified 5 places in New Hampshire that might be, the first up for potential microgrids to serve a variety of needs. And it outlined as well the interconnected relationship of these microgrids to cybersecurity. That if you're going to have generation, most of the power may be used on the site, or that there's just generation facilities and or electric distribution in this microgrid for transmission. If there is interconnection, however, to the grid, you're going to really need to make sure that there is cybersecurity at that level. So if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to start with the page 2 about the micro grids study, and this is line 17. So what I thought with the microgrid study that was done was that since it got a good part of the way down the road towards identifying sites and the work that needs to be done of how you regulate this, how the finances of cybersecurity, that I didn't want this process just to be dead in the water. And that otherwise we'd have to wait a year or two, and the need for these things and their utility for the state, I think needs continued attention. And I will note that in the microgrid study, it says it's one of its main conclusions is that it needs to be able to continue the work to develop models that were suggested in it. So what this part of the bill then is meant to authorize the pilot programs and the continuing work. It has identified the 5 potential sites in this study, and that it would, with a definition of microgrids taken mostly from the report here, that it would look at these features and continue that work. Now, in talking with Chris Elms and Josh Elliott, they think maybe it's premature to say that they'll go right ahead and establish these sites and so on, and so that what the revision here might be that they're authorized to continue the study and to look at developing sites in it, because otherwise I think in a pilot program we need to have information here about the dates of them, what size they would be, what regulation to be under, and maybe that's a little premature, as I've heard from the folks who work on this.
So is this a proposed change that you're?
Yeah, so I will see what the DOE wants to revise this, but I just want to suggest. Now, the reason I want to start with microgrid is that that's what the rest of the bill kind of falls out into. So if we can return now to the beginning of the bill, the first part I would like to talk about is the potential for looking at transmission and generation for sites that are identified for interstate trucking, marine shipping, microgrid development. And so there has been one study which is referenced here that was regional states came together to look at the Northeast Corridor Freight Corridor charging plan. That work was done. and identified potentially 2 sites in New Hampshire. So this will be industry driven. You know, the industry as it, you know, develops, and Amazon has ordered 100,000 electric trucks, and there are others for other purposes coming on. It's going to be slow. You know, there's issues about whether trucking will even go in this direction or not, and I understand that. But since the sites have been developed and it's a multi-state effort, then the next step for us to think, okay, if these sites have been identified, how are we going to get the power there? Now, New Hampshire was the first state in the United States to say that highway corridors were the appropriate site for use for transmission corridors. And this may have come out of Northern Pass and some other things, but that was a very smart move, and other states have now followed that. That you have this highway corridor if you are going to need to transmit power to a site, or if there's a distributed energy site that wants to transmit power out, look at the highway corridors. The second part of it, though, is that generation. It might require, you know, 50, 60 megawatts to power a standard 10-bay supercharging trucking on either side of a highway. And so this might be a potential for small modular reactors, and that is mentioned in the microgrid study as well, that we might see some of the early adoption of those small modular reactors or other kinds of distributed energy generation at just this sort of site. So I thought we ought to take a look. I've talked with DOT, talked with others, and they say, yeah, we have that study. There is a new study that is now getting underway looking at the I-95 corridor from Maine to Florida. I would think as that project develops that in Newington, because we have, you know, a gigawatt of power is interconnected there, and you have Route 16 and Route 95, that might be a site of interest as well for some kind of infrastructure. A few years ago, I looked at hydrogen there, you know, so I just think it's an opportunity for us to plan here without any commitment of state resources, but to plan so that if investors are looking at New Hampshire, they would know that they would see a landscape in which they might make that investment. Secondly, I related to this are the ports, and you'll see the ports included here. I've talked with the Pease Development Authority folks and with the director of the port. They recognize that there have been several studies of port electrification. Crowley Associates in particular is already providing electric barges with charging and batteries that can pull into a port to provide this. And it's twofold purpose. There are a few electric boats that are coming along. If you happen to get Down East Magazine, you'll see a big article here about the starting to roll out coastal vessels, lobster boats and fishing boats that are much cheaper. Ferry boats are already being ordered up and down the East Coast that run off electricity, short run things. And so, but the main use of this is to allow a larger ship, like a cargo ship, a tanker, when it comes into port, instead of using its diesel supply to power it, it could plug in. This would be a substantial savings for shipping companies to be able to do that, let alone what benefits you might get for air pollution. There are some of the international shipping companies like Maersk and others who have invested, I think, $200 million at this point into United States East Coast ports, and there's a West Coast electrification investments being as well. So my thought here was that if we did a study for the port, that this is very practical, and it would also signal that our port is one that might be potentially ready for an investment by private investors or shipping companies, so that this capacity is here, which will probably drive us to have some more usage of the port.
This first port is basically a study. All right.
Yeah, it's all, that part of it is all a study. Now, as I said, the other part here is the relationship, as we see in the microgrid study, of microgrids, transmission, distributed energy resources to cybersecurity. This is really a growing issue in that we are finding that there are mystery chips in inverters, in solar panels, in washing machines.
Probably in beepers too.
Manufactured in other countries. And what are those chips doing there? You know, people don't know. And so the fear is, and you know, there has been demonstrated before that this could potentially create great vulnerabilities. Because if these chips are there and something like an inverter is connected to the electrical system, how do we know that they can't be implemented in such a way to threaten our grid? So if we're going to have microgrids, we need to make sure we have sufficient cybersecurity. Within the state government, thanks to Governor Sununu and others, we have some folks who are working on this. Commissioner Scott in the water area, there is a kind of a task force there. In the microgrid study, I attended a meeting and I heard from Eversource, and I know Michael Okada here, they have a large group of people who work on cybersecurity to make sure that their own transmission network is secure from these kinds of threats. But what we don't have are state standards for cybersecurity so that we can have, you know, if we need to, we can regulate that if you're going to be able to connect to the grid, you need to demonstrate that you have these kinds of capacities to ensure that you have cybersecurity. So I really think there's some urgency here. I think we are vulnerable right now, and I think states need to take some action on it. I've had more conversation with DOE. You know, what's going to be simplest here? Again, I think we might see some revision to it. It basically is going to say you're authorized, DOE, to do rulemaking on these standards. Go through that process, hear from the utilities, everybody else, the manufacturers of equipment, so on and so forth, microgrid developers, whatever, and find out, you know, what the state of the art is and what kind of regulation that those rules could make. I think there'll be some changes that DOE wants to that, but that's the purpose of that. And then thanks for your indulgence, Mr. Chairman, but last but not least, I had a call from the Commissioner Scott after the filing period saying that, you know, he is part of that working group and they were ready to go now on the DES cybersecurity action plan. And so that is the last part of the bill. This seemed like a convenient way and is related to the other parts that's included here. Again, I mean, we'll hear from the commissioner and we have the letter here. I simply cannot emphasize enough the importance of cybersecurity for water treatment facilities. You can imagine what public health threats and then what financial consequences there would be if the cybersecurity, somebody, an enemy, you know, some kind of enemy or hacker targeted a wastewater treatment facility. What damage that could do to the residents of the state and so on. So I think there's some urgency on the cybersecurity parts of this bill, and the other parts are, you know, set up a task force, say what do we got to do, and let them report to us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. So basically, there's going to be some type of an amendment. Is it that for page 2? Is that, am I correct?
Yeah, and I should have that fairly shortly.
Okay. All right. Any questions from the committee? Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So given the importance of cybersecurity about water, and I'm thinking that DES has the expertise, why is it may adopt rules instead of shall adopt rules on line 28 of page 3?
Well, I'll let the commissioner speak to that, but I think that that's just a procedural thing about what are they going to need to do.
I'm just trying to imagine
But
how
please
they
ask the
would do it
commissioner.
without rules.
And also do note that is this July 1st, 2027 on that one. And that's the date that they thought they would need to get ready. They needed that time, but the commissioner can speak to it.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
So, any other further questions? Seeing none. Thank you. Mr. Scully.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
No, I should have Commissioner, but I want to.
For the record, my name is Bob Scully. I represent New Hampshire Motor Transport Association, the trucking industry in our beautiful state of New Hampshire. We're opposed to this study, but very specifically opposed to the trucking piece, okay? I'm not trying to talk to cybersecurity and that, so if I can just point out, and I'll explain myself, if we're looking at this language and it moves forward without trucking, you'd have to strike interstate trucking on line 4. And then from line 6 on, this is page 2, all the way to line 6 on page 3, that would remove what I believe is the trucking pieces of it. So I've asked to be distributed some studies that we've already done on electrification of heavy-duty trucks. To the best of my knowledge, there is not one single heavy-duty truck in New Hampshire that is powered by electricity. They take 8,000-pound batteries to power a powertrain in a truck, and they need 3 of them to do that. They do not have the range or the productivity that a clean diesel, is the way the industry's gone, for their ability to get on the highways. A combustion engine truck costs roughly $140,000. A full electric one that pulls a 80,000-pound vehicle costs $435,000. When you plug it in at night, the charging of one single truck is equivalent to providing electricity to 100 homes over one night for one truck. In this bill, 3 times I see the words recoverable expense, and I did not talk to the senator, so I apologize. So I don't know what that actually means. But if it means to go to the ratepayers to get recoverable expense for trucking charging stations, I don't think many people would like that. We certainly don't. And if this is for Amazon potentially, maybe, or Interstate, is no New Hampshire companies are going to go to these 2 charging stations. If they electrify anything, they'll go back to the barn. So it's a minimum of tens of millions of dollars for this, and you see that in that report that I passed out to you for New Hampshire. So I would kindly ask, if this study moves forward, that you would take the trucking piece out of it.
Other than that, you like the bill?
Other than that, the bill's up to you guys.
All right, so no waters of the question.
Yeah. Thanks, Bob. And let me mention this first, that the recoverable expense only deals with any costs involved to do the study. It has nothing else to do with anything else. And I'm thinking of striking that anyways.
Okay.
Okay.
I wasn't sure, that's why.
Yeah, so I know, I understand. I should have mentioned in my introduction to the
Yeah.
bill, because I do think it's important to make clear that what the provision, the statute allows, that if there are costs related to electricity, the DOE can ask that those be recovered if it's a study. All right, and I think I may take it out anyways. So my real question though is that I just hope it's clear in this bill that there is nothing here about building these. There is nothing here about authorizing them. There's nothing here about implementing them. There's nothing here about charging anybody for anything. It is saying that since these sites have been identified as potentially ones that we ought to look at, if somebody wants to invest in these, it won't be the state. If somebody wants to, that we'll have looked at how a power supply might get there. That's the bill.
Okay.
Does that seem a little better?
Maybe. We're still opposed to the trucking piece in this bill.
Thank you.
Senator McConkey.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Scully, always nice to see you there.
Thank you, Senator.
Could you, couple points if I could. Could you remind me where you thought items should be struck? I had item number 4, was that, and then page 2, number 6 through page 3, number 6. Would you mind just giving that to me in writing at another time?
Send it to you in writing? Absolutely.
Second thing, I have had a lot of involvement with interstate agencies on how we're going to pay for our roads. Over the years, and I see, and I'm sitting in a meeting in Burlington just a matter of 2 months ago, and we're spending a day and a half talking about EVs. And with the exception of only 1 or 2 states are seeing any growth whatsoever. And it seems to me, no disrespect to my fellow senator and others, that the energy of electric vehicles is the wind is out of that sail. It appears at this point in time. So I'd be inclined to agree with what you said.
So a follow-up, Mr. Chairman, so
Well,
during the Biden administration, there was a big push for this, okay? And the new administration in Washington is not, but probably 99% of commercial trucks that are electrified are in the state of California.
and if I could just follow up with the statement, the sheer weight of these vehicles, whether they be school buses or tractor trailers out on the road, our transportation system can't sustain that weight. So I just add that also. Thank you. Thank you for letting me indulge, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr.
no
Chairman.
further questions. Thank you very much. Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, members of the committee. Bob Scott, Commissioner of the Department of Environmental Services. I have with me Jonna McKenna. She runs our cybersecurity efforts for drinking water in the state. She's passing out to you not only our testimony, but a synopsis of some of the things we've been doing on this front. So if I can indulge the committee a little bit, so the agency over the past 5 years, 6 years, has spent considerable amount of time through my other work. We have a very good relationship with DHS CISA. We've spent a lot of time looking at providing assistance for water and drinking water and wastewater systems on cybersecurity. So to give you an idea, the concern, if I go back to 2024, Governor Sununu at the time and every governor of every state and territory received not one letter, not two letters, but 3 letters from the National Security Advisor at the White House saying, water cybersecurity is a huge concern. Help us. What are you going to do about it, states? Which I had mixed feelings about because I felt that's a federal thing as well. But in any case, the intent was this is really important. We're seeing a lot of nation-state activity on this front. How are we protecting those systems? So I'll explain really quickly what we've been doing in the past. That then generated the National Security Advisor at the time, set up a national call, which I was on. Hey, states, what are you doing? And they called out New Hampshire specifically as, hey, you ought to be doing what they're doing. So so anyway, so I'm proud of that work that we're doing. What have we been doing? So we started working, again, very closely with CISA. They were doing, an EPA had a contractor, they were doing free assessments for water and wastewater systems. We used ARPA money. We set up a grant program where the mantra was get your free assessment from CISA, usually. They'll give you a laundry list of things that need to be tightened up for cybersecurity. Come to us with your plan and we'll give you up to $50,000 for a water system, or many towns have water and wastewater. We'll give you $100,000. That was our effort to get this moving. What we found in reality was this often, especially for the smaller drinking water systems, the same person who's doing the maintenance on the facility, checking the water chemistry, mowing the lawn, was now being tasked, because of the new world we're in, to be working on a computer and that type of thing. Because of that element of that, what we found is they would get their free assessment and then go, I don't know what this means. And then maybe we'd get a grant application for maybe $5,000, $10,000, et cetera, where I knew and CISA knew that every system could use $50,000 without, this money could easily be spent. So that really showed the level in some areas. Obviously, the larger water companies are more sophisticated, where we really needed to regroup. So we stopped the grant program, and then we did an RFP, and we contracted with a nonprofit in New Hampshire, the Overwatch Foundation, which is referenced in the handout, and changed our approach. So we did a little bit more of a remedial effort, if you will, hand-holding, in the context of you get your assessment, if you're ready, and we do it, they do an analysis there too. Overwatch can work with the system, work with their systems integrator, and effectively, we're providing for free 3 years of the appliances, firewalls, the things that connect to that, patching, training, and the expectation is at the end of that 3 years, they have either, the systems have either contracted for somebody to do this moving forward, or they have built the in-house talent um, in a sustainable way, if you will, and baked it into their rates. Unfortunately, this does cost money to do this type of thing, but not as much as it costs to have a problem. So we've done that. We're currently doing that. The handout outlines a lot of our efforts on that. That's the carrot. We were interested, not to be negative, but we have some systems, because of the same issue, it's the same people doing all those 10 other things. So to get them to now sign up for free service, what we're finding in some cases is, I'm just too busy, I can't find time to do that. So we want to move to the next step. We're going to continue with being able, hopefully be able to fund this type of effort on the voluntary side, but we want to work with industry and start to develop basic standards and rules whereby we set up some basic hygiene for cybersecurity to kind of, improve things with our critical infrastructure. Senator Rosenwald, to your point, assume you enact this. I would also argue this is a fairness issue too. We think we already have these authorities, but they're intertwined with a lot of our other statutes for drinking water and wastewater. We want it clear to the regulated community that we have these authorities. And again, that's why we'd like to do rulemaking also. So shall is absolutely acceptable to us. Our intention is to do rulemaking. Assume you support this.
Does this bill help you?
I think it helps the whole state. So
And Jenna, you didn't want to speak, and you're not in support or opposed, but do you have anything that you'd like to add?
I should fill that out a little better. Yeah. Nothing to add, Commissioner, you did.
okay.
Great job.
So I do have one other thought. So again, I do support that section of the bill. I don't have a position on the rest of it, but I do want to point out for the transportation corridor and all the other work that, in fact, Jessica Wilcox on my staff is back here. We do administer the Diesel Emission Retrofit Act monies. So those are monies to replace diesel engines in the state with either cleaner diesel engines or alternative fueled fleets, or which could include electric vehicles. And we administer the Volkswagen settlement funds, which a portion of that goes into electrification. In both of those efforts, staff work very closely with the Department of Energy here and the Department of Transportation. So I say that in the context of, I think it's obvious to those agencies anyways, and perhaps the senator, but we have a resource here, and we actually have funding. I was a little bit surprised the minibus bill, includes a re-up of the DARA monies also. So there'll be some funding available.
Senator McConkey?
Thank you. Thank you,
Senator
Mr.
Rosenwald?
Chairman. Commissioner Jenna, nice to see you again. I have had the pleasure of sitting in many continuing education meetings with you and your staff. And I must say, for a number of years, 3+ years, you've been raising the flag, and people in the room would be looking and thinking, it's not a threat, but it is. So this is wonderful. I agree with what you're doing here. I just want to caution, in the long run, water operations can be as small as 20, 25 people, homeowner association, so forth. So as you go through and looking at your rates, when you've pulled this together in 3 years, that you take into consideration just the extra amount of testing and what that cost is for small operators, that you really try and make this as affordable as you can. My only request, I like the proposal.
And if I could comment on that, so that's an important consideration too for a lot of these small systems. Most of them are not. They don't have industrial control systems. They're not connected to the internet, and that's the other reason why this would be helpful. Because before they take that leap, it looks attractive to do that, and wouldn't that be great? We want them to take the cybersecurity side of this into account before they put themselves into a position where now you're vulnerable, now you're incurring this extra cost, et cetera.
Senator Rosenwald?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you please respond to Mr. Scully's request that we remove the task force to look at transmission corridors and electrification of the ports? I mean, I was surprised because as I read this, it looks like a study, no mandate, no, nothing would be market forces. Does DES think this is something we should look at in case some company wanted to come in and build the infrastructure?
I defer to Department of Energy on that. That's why, again, hopefully I was clear. I'm taking a positive position on the cybersecurity for water systems, but I'll defer to my fellow agency on Department of Energy. if
I think it
could.
was just the trucking element that he was concerned with, and the load on obviously on our roads and on our bridges. I'm not sure he's concerned about so much the corridor, but as much it is the trucking. But Senator Waters?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. And I just want to reiterate in public here, as I've discussed with Commissioner Scott, that whatever the other happens in other parts of this bill, that one way or another, we will need to make sure that this part of the bill, whether in this vehicle or attached to a House bill, gets done. Because for the water system, we have to get it done. This became a convenient vehicle, but I just wanted to state publicly our understanding is that one way or another, we have a responsibility to try to get this part of it done.
Thank you. That's much appreciated.
Thank you.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I believe so. Yeah, look, way back there.
You know
So
that guy.
quiet, way back there. Little wallflower out there. Seeing no further questions, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing how the Department of Energy was brought up, Josh Elliott. Yeah, well, it's still January.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Josh Elliott, Director of the Division of Policy Programs at the Department of Energy. As Senator Rosenwald pointed out, first time this session. Earlier this week, I was in front of your colleagues in the House ST&E, and the week prior to that, I was traveling on state business. So unfortunately, I missed the first two hearings for your committee this year.
It was great, too. You missed a really good show.
I'm disappointed I didn't get a chance to contribute. At any rate, so speaking to the matter of hand, Senate Bill 589 is before you. I'm almost going to do the inverse of Commissioner Scott. The department has no position on Section 2, which is all the cybersecurity standards dealing with drinking water and wastewater systems that Commissioner Scott spoke to. In terms of the three other really sections of the bill, it's sort of all rolled up into Section 1 here. Regarding the initial interstate trucking piece of it, I think as Senator Waters had pointed out, the removal of the ability for the Department of Energy to recover expenses from all ratepayers, he's proposing that to be removed. That would be on page 2, lines 12 and 13. We're appreciative of that, given the scope of the study that's contemplated here, given you're talking about generation as well, does not. It would be a bit of a stretch at best to assess that cost to all electric ratepayers on the distribution side. Senator Waters also spoke, so I'm looking now on page 2, line 17 following, regarding the pilot program for the microgrid. As he had mentioned, we'd recently completed an investigation into microgrids. You know, took a little bit longer than we had expected. We did run into a hiccup close to the end. Some of you may be aware, the Americans with Disability Act had a recent update that governs how government documents are placed on websites, which required a whole bunch of detail that goes into the actual sort of the behind the scenes of an actual document, including metadata, things like that, as well as descriptions of charts. Essentially, somebody who is hard of, who can't see all that well or can't see at all, has these sort of e-readers that will go through the documents. So we had to make sure that all of those documents were compliant with that, which took a little bit of time, but it was important to make sure that everybody has access to these types of resources. As Senator had mentioned, really the next phase of this sort of doing pilots would probably be a little bit premature in terms of this. So as he had mentioned, we'd be looking for essentially a phase 2 of the investigation. We'd be happy to work on language to affect that. Included, as the senator also mentioned, there's the cybersecurity component. This is growing, across industries, right? Either you have, ransomware attacks, as we saw with the Colonial Pipeline a couple of years ago, or you have state actors who may be interfering with these a variety of different energy systems, whether it's delivered fuels, whether it's or whether it's utility infrastructure as well. So that's a known and a growing threat that folks are keeping an eye on. In terms of distributed energy resources, just to give you some context again, as Senator Waters mentioned, the utilities do have substantial resources that are committed to doing cybersecurity. We have a dedicated staff member within the agency whose job it is just to review and offer feedback and guidance on the respective utilities' cybersecurity plans. So we do have some of that expertise in-house. What I would like to propose is that we add that as part of the duties of the phase 2 of the microgrids. That way we're looking at a holistic approach. We're looking at it specifically within the microgrid context. And that would also inform what the best venue is to do that. Are there existing rule sets that we can sort of back these into? Does it conform with the existing utility cybersecurity plans? Right, rules are a great place, right? They have the full force and effect of law. They also take a very long time to update. So, to figure out the best sort of venue to make sure that those are put in place in the right place that can be, that are both effective and can be updated on a regular basis.
So if I may just interrupt, Mr. Chair.
You
just
may.
to clarify something you were saying. So what you would like us to do, and you and I will work on the language, is to take the cybersecurity piece and make it part of the duties of the renewed microgrid study.
Yes, I think that would probably be the most effective way to do that.
That makes a lot of sense, and that's the whole, that's what kind of was noted in the study, that these two go together. So,
Yes.
thank you. I'll
So
do that.
if we remove the trucking portion out of that, is that going to cause any heartburn?
No, so these could operate independently, right? You could have a microgrid, whether it's a large user of electricity, right? They've been frequently mentioned in the context of data centers and things like that. So it's not, microgrids would not necessarily be exclusively used in a trucking
Right.
situation.
So, yeah,
Scenario.
We'll work it out.
yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yes, sorry, that concludes my remarks. I'm happy to take any questions.
Oh.
You already did.
Ladies first this time.
Thank you. Let me just ask you the question. Does DOE have a point of view on this task force about transmission corridors, charging terminals, and the port electrification? Looking into it.
This is sort of, we view this as a policy decision of the legislature. If they'd like us to look into this, as working with our colleagues at other state agencies, we're happy to do it. I think the one thing that I would comment, and I'm glad you did, was add that this prime sponsor added, or designee after commissioner. So that's always appreciated.
Okay, thank you.
He's excited. Yeah.
Can I follow up with that?
I got Senator McCarthy
Oh, I'm sorry.
next.
Go ahead. Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Senator Waters, during his testimony, had referred to on page 2, I think around line 21 is where I made my note. And it talks about the Department of Energy, which I assume is you establish a pilot program for New Hampshire and identify 5 locations. And we were told those 5 locations were identified in the report that was released as of last night or this morning. Can you tell me those 5 sites, please, or towns?
Sure. So they are included within the investigation. I'm happy to send a copy of the report that was produced. They were locations, I should say, that were identified in a very broad sense by Eversource as potential locations, so just within their service territory. Obviously, there are certain pieces of the grid that are sensitive, so we did not specify the towns. We specified the area in the state. So there was a map that sort of gives a sense of where those communities are.
Which I believe I'm looking at page 14 of the report.
I would, if you flip it around, yes, that's the map.
I got a color copy of that.
I can understand gray. Thank you.
You are.
I live in that color.
Any further questions? Thank you very much. Seeing how you brought up Eversource, we're going to ask Mr. Michael Okada.
I'm sorry, I have a question. Excuse me.
Almost got away.
So as I mentioned in my introduction about the trucking piece, that, you know, the study was undertaken, identified a couple of sites. There's another study coming along for the I-95 corridor. I'm really agnostic about whether these things will happen or not. But let's say we don't pass this, you would have the capacity in Department of Energy, just in your regular work, that if it came up that it needs to be taken a look at these sites that have been identified, or for somebody to express an interest in making an investment, that you would be able to follow up on that and look at the power issues raised by it.
Yeah, yes. So if it'd probably initiated through BEA, I imagine they'd probably go to the utility before us in terms of trying to cite one of these.
Thank you.
You may leave now.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Appreciate you. No, wait, just kidding. Go up, Mike.
Good afternoon. Michael Okada representing Eversource. I'll be pretty brief. A couple of the issues that we just wanted to flag had already been raised. I will say we've had some constructive conversations with Senator Waters and really do appreciate his outreach and request for feedback. So just starting on page 2, we had flagged similarly, I think, to the Department of Energy, cost of report preparations for the Department of Transportation study, as well as the cost of administrative expenses for the microgrid pilot. It says that these are recoverable expenses. We had questions about whether or not that should be included in the utility assessment. Again, good conversations with Senator Waters on that, which I believe he referenced, as well as Mr. Elliott from the Department of Energy. Staying on page 2, line 19, just a recommendation. It says Department of Energy is authorized to establish a pilot program in New Hampshire for microgrid development to promote, it says, transmission resilience. We would recommend distribution resilience, because that's really where the level of the electric grid that you would get the resiliency. There is a reference to small modular reactors. Not that we are opposed to that being looked at as an option, but as we read this, it would sort of limit and require a small modular reactor to be included in a microgrid, which could limit opportunities for microgrid development in the site. So maybe may include, but just some flexibility on there would probably be helpful. And then finally,
Do you mean like wind?
What's that?
I'm kidding. Like wind.
I think just the final is, I know Mr. Elliott talked about, perhaps this is something to be worked on by the microgrid group that Eversource has been an active participant in. But right now, the language in the bill, it's fairly broad on the 5 potential sites. There's no real sort of either geographic or megawatt size limitations, timelines. So perhaps that's better left for the microgrid group. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have. Perfect. Thank you.
Well done. All right, you are our last speaker, but if anybody else wants to follow up and comment? Going once, and twice, all done. All right, we're going to close the hearing. And I don't think we have anything to exec right now. So with that, we'll see you next week. Thank you, everybody. Good job. Man.